It only took 10 years to get this knife made. What's going, guys? Sean here, and I want to talk about a little bit of the journey that it took to this knife right here and why it's so special. 10 years ago, around 2015, my favorite steel in the world was this right here, CPM M4. Now this is a sprint run. It came out in 2017 from Blade HQ, but back then this was my pride and joy. 2015, the best steel I had ever experienced at that time, and it blew my mind. I tried a lot of the different super steels at that time, and I wasn't as impressed. I didn't think that they really held that front end sharpness very good. And to me at that time, I wasn't using all the different exotic diamond and CBN stones. These super steels like S90V and S110V, they just don't get as sharp, and they seem like they just hold a working edge forever, which didn't interest me as much. Once I got a chance to try something like the CPM M4, my mind was blown. This was something that actually took an incredible edge. Well, the combination between CPM M4 and CBN emulsions, it took the edge performance and sharpness to another level. From there on, I knew that carbon tool steels, especially the particle metallurgy ones, that was definitely the direction things needed to go if you were obsessed with edge performance. A couple years later, again, this came out in 2017, there was a very curious steel that was coming out, and Sal was toting it as one of his new favorites, and that was Bowler K390. The K390 was interesting because on paper it didn't look anything like the CPM M4, but it was technically what was considered an A11 class steel, which is like a tier above the M4 when it comes to hardness and wear resistance, etc. And it has a lot of vanadium carbide, up there 16-17% versus a much smaller amount with the CPM M4. So on paper, it looked like a total monster, and it also had a lot of hardness as well. There was a gentleman on the forum by the name of Doc Dan who was asking very curiously an excellent question. Was this going to be the M4 killer? And so, given the format of these blades being of similar size, that year of 2017, it was excellent to test and compare these, and just testing anecdotally and just using these over the years, there wasn't really any trade-offs to using this, but the benefits were that you got a much more aggressive, stronger edge that still held up well. It's not like toughness was diminished jumping up to this right here. I thought that was very interesting. On paper, this was supposed to be so much more brittle than this right here, but that's not what I experienced, and that's when I understood that strength is a very important component for what we perceive as toughness. And so that really lasted with me, and that was an important lesson that I had learned. The K390 was really, a lot of ways, the progenitor to something like CPM 15V on my journey. All of these steels are much older than my experience with them. There were some comments about the CPM 15V when it was initially coming out at late 2022. Folks were saying, well, this steel actually goes back to 1994. It's not a new steel. That's correct. And none of these are new steels, so to speak, if you want to go down that route. But like I'm saying, our understanding of them as far as how they relate to knives and edges is still very, very new. 2017, we also got to experience this very curious steel right here, which was the Maxamet. And when it was initially coming online, I didn't know anything about it. But once I learned it was also going to be a carbon PM tool steel, I thought that was very exciting. I'd already experienced stuff with these ones right here. And so the Maxamet, as it turned out, was just a total beast. There was no equivalent to something like this on the market when it came out, and it represented a technological innovation to get something that's this monstrous in a production environment to the consumer at a good price point. So I thought that was incredible. I had never heard of steels that were pushing 70 Rockwell before. So at that time, 2017 moving into 2018, this was incredible. Now, I really wanted this steel in this format right here, and I talked to Sal about that at the knife shows, and he said it's just not possible. So there was also a time where it seemed like the Maxamet production was just going away. It was very obstinate material to work with. For some people, it was also very polarizing, and it definitely required diamond and CBN to sharpen no matter what anybody told you. Even if people did get it somewhat sharp using ceramic and were trying to use that as an aha moment, it was still not the best practice for enjoying what this steel could offer. So it looked like there was a time where this was going away and it couldn't be made into the larger formats, and that's what led me to explore and find something like this, the CPM 15V. Around 2018, 2019 is when I was exploring this and developing the heat treatment. Hey, what could I say? It only took 6 or 7 years to finally get it into the military too. So this was a little bit about my journey and my experience that led to the CPM 15V in a much larger knife format. To recap things, started with M4. That was one of my favorites. Realized that the toughness drop on paper when you jump up to something like K390 wasn't as significant in real world use. And then we could not get Maxamet into this larger format, and it looked like Maxamet needed a substitute, increase the toughness and sharpenability, etc. And that's when we ran into the CPM 15V. And what's special about the CPM 15V is that it has the heat treatment that I developed on there. So that's why my logo is on the side of the blade right there, is because this represents a heat treatment collaboration. Military 2 is not my design, but the heat treatment itself is. So it wouldn't be correct to say that this is just regular CPM 15V. This is triple B, BBB, CPM 15V. So I hope you guys enjoyed that explanation and me kind of going down memory lane. And I really appreciate the love and support you guys have been dropping on the 15V. So thank you.